ready.
Okay, give me just a second.
Ah, there we go.
Packed them in, Kevin.
I did.
You ready?
So we are live? We are live. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the return to live meetings for the Millwood City Council. Tonight is Tuesday, February 8th. It is 7 p.m. And so at this time, I will call the regular meeting of the Millwood City Council to order. Christina, would you like to take attendance this evening?
Mayor Freeman,
Present.
Councilmember Vesey,
Here.
Councilmember Kohler,
Present.
Councilmember McLaughlin, here. Councilmember Sander,
Here.
Councilmember Van Hees.
Mr. Van Hees is busy building the world one concrete block at a time and will be excused this evening. We do have a quorum of the members present, and so we may convene a regular meeting. So at this time, do I have a motion on tonight's agenda for this meeting?
I'd like to make a motion that we add the Pledge of Allegiance to tonight's consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. Any discussion? I will say thank you for that catch. It's been so long. I appreciate it. So with item 1B added, we will add the Pledge of Allegiance. So with that addendum at this time, do I have a motion on approving the amended agenda?
I make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Tonight's agenda, as amended, is approved. So let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I remember it. I'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So it is good to see everyone. So tonight we have a kind of loaded consent agenda. Before I get into that, I will say our treasurer is home ill. She is available by phone. So what I will ask is on here we have the payroll vouchers claims, the treasurer's report for January, and then we have the year-end claims and the year-end treasurer's report. In review of your packet, does anybody have any concerns or questions for those? If you do, I would say we can wait because Ms. Mackin will join us by telephone for her staff report. But if there is something that would preclude you from voting or require you to take that as a separate action item, if you could let me know now, I would appreciate it. Not seeing or hearing anything. So tonight's consent agenda does consist of the minutes from the January 11th, 2022 regular meeting, payroll vouchers and claims for January 2022, the January 2022 treasurer's report, the 2021 year-end claims and year-end treasurer's report, and a Historic Preservation Commission reappointment of Dr. Annie Oakes. Would anyone like to take any of those items separately? Not seeing or hearing any, do I have a motion on tonight's consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda as presented with the Pledge of Allegiance modification.
Got it. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Vesey. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None opposed. The consent agenda for tonight is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. So that brings us to our action items for this evening. Action item A is the deed of declaration of city property to right of way. Mr. Wirtz, would you like to take that?
I think I will defer to Mr. Allen, who asked to
Ah.
take it. Yeah.
Yep, so it's actually a dedication, deed to right of way. So on the,
Hang on one second.
okay. Oh. Turn this on.
No.
Oh. Flip it around? Okay. All right. It's been 2 years. Okay, so this is a deed of dedication for city property to be used over as right-of-way for the Argonne Congestion Relief Project. It's approximately 10.5 feet, or 11.5 feet, on the west side of the building that we dedicate over to the right-of-way for that extra lane and sidewalk that we're going to be putting in over there. There's a legal description on the back. I won't go through that because it's all legalese, but that's basically what this deed is for. So we've already acquired, or we're in the process of acquiring the rest of the property through the appraisals. So the city kind of held up on this for a little while until we got further into the appraisal process. But now we're ready to pull the trigger on this, and it looks like the project's going to go. So we might as well do it now. And then all the appraisal process will, there won't be any hold up on it. You have some questions?
So just for clarity, this is required as part of the Argonne Congestion Relief Project, so we would have to do this at some point. Any questions for Paul? Not seeing or hearing any. Do I have a motion on the deed of dedication as presented? Which would be, I guess, authorizing me to sign the deed of dedication on behalf of the city.
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to execute the deed of dedication on behalf of the city.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Not seeing or hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None opposed. The deed of declaration, execution of that deed is approved. So that brings us to, thank you, that brings us to item B, which is Resolution 2022-01, a right-of-way policy appeal process. Paul, you want to take this one?
Actually,
Is this one Brian?
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's ping pong. This resolution is necessary also as a result of the Argonne project. In order to engage in any sort of relocation project and for that property owner to be eligible for relocation benefits under the Washington Relocation Act and the regulations, we have to adopt a relocation appeal process. The Relocation Act requires that we give the property owner notice of what actions must be taken, what we've deemed to be fair market value in connection with those actions. What the act requires is that we also notify them of what our appeal process is that the city council has adopted in case they feel that the value is too low, inappropriate, or whatever it might be. There's only one relocation element that's been identified at this time as part of the project. It's a gas line that's out here by the Gerber property. I think we've identified the approximate amount to do the work to move the gas line to be the princely sum of $156,080 is what the engineers have identified. Your relocation appeal process costs you more to adopt to satisfy the legal requirements than the relocation of the gas line itself, but nonetheless it is a requirement of moving forward. The policy was adopted, I don't want to say verbatim because there were some word choices I didn't like, but it is very close to what has been adopted uniformly throughout the state of Washington by other jurisdictions engaging in Relocation Act benefit assistance. So happy to answer any questions on that. Otherwise would ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2022-01 right-of-way policy as presented.
So you say that this is commensurate with what's already within other areas, And is this only addressing the one this one issue, or is this now our appeal process for all issues and it's
Yeah, this would
just
be,
uniform?
yeah, to the extent that we would engage in relocation benefit assistance for any other property owner in the city, this would be the process unless otherwise amended by the council in the future. It could have been adopted, some other jurisdictions, I will say, some other jurisdictions have adopted it by ordinance and included it as a specific provision in the city code. You don't engage in a lot of relocation, a lot of projects that are subject to relocation. This is the first, since I've worked with the city, where we've had to have this in place. So we opted not to include it as a new chapter of the city code. If we have to go back and use that in the future, we could certainly do so. But at any point that a property owner is a candidate for relocation assistance, by law, we're obligated to put them on notice of this policy once it's been adopted. So regardless of whether it's in city code or regardless of whether we've adopted it by resolution and put them on notice, they will receive a copy of it.
Any other questions for Mr. Worst? Do I have a motion on resolution 2022-01 as presented?
I move we adopt resolution 2022-01, right-of-way policy appeal process as presented.
Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Not seeing or hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Resolution 2022-01 is passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to item number C, ordinance 523, an amendment to the historic preservation regulations. Christina.
Thank you. In your packet for tonight's meeting, you have a draft of changes to the historic preservation regulations, specifically the criteria for being a member on the commission. As you all know, we've had a vacancy on our commission for 3 or 4 years now that we've been unable to fill. I've talked to various different people, I've advertised it different ways, and we just have not been successful finding a property owner or a resident who wants to participate in that. However, we do have some folks who, in one particular case, grew up in Millwood, folks who have a lot of history in Millwood but don't currently live in Millwood or own property in Millwood that would be interested in joining the commission. And so the Historic Preservation Commission has asked for this proposed change, that in the case where someone does not live in Millwood or is not a property owner but is able to demonstrate usefulness to the commission, history of Millwood, that sort of thing, that those folks could also be considered by the mayor for appointment to the commission. So that it's a small change you can see there, likely will make a very big difference to the commission. I can answer any questions if you have them.
Mr. Sander.
I just noticed a little typo there on the third whereas. Mine is, instead of, it's 204, the year was 204.
14. That would have been August 12 of 2014.
Okay, we will correct that.
It's been on the books for a long time.
So I do think what Christina is saying is very apt for our historic preservation. We do have folks in the area who are interested in Millwood history and historic preservation. I would urge the council to, in order to keep this commission viable, that this is a fair compromise for that by extending some of this out, because as Christina said, we've had vacancies for a long time on this, but I do think they do good work. Lately, they have definitely been working hard with their video production. The trail signs are almost done. They're looking at potentially doing some outreach to some of the local businesses with respect to the upcoming congestion relief project and signage and streetlights and all that sort of stuff. So historic preservation is necessary, but we need to try and keep the hopper of folks as full as possible. So I recommend this.
So how many people are on the,
Well, there's 5 positions on the commission, and we have had 4 now for 4 years, I think, 3 or 4 years. It's been quite some time.
so is there any way to write into this amendment that a majority still, I mean, I'm just saying you get the wrong mayor, you can just pretty much stock our entire planning commission full of developers that have no interest in the city. So, I mean, is there like verbiage that we could insert or consider that means that there's over half as citizens, or 3 of the 5 are citizens? That satisfies the ability for vacantly filled positions, but it also maintains that citizens are still governing our city's codes.
Yes, I think that language could be added, and I agree that's probably in our best interest. In that case, I would feel better about this than if we wait on the vote and I take it back to the Historic Preservation Commission and bring it back to you at your next meeting.
Is council fine with that?
Yeah.
So we appreciate We appreciate Ms. Beasley's comments, and we will take those and as I said, revise. And so at this time, I would look for no action on ordinance 523, and we will move on to the next agenda item, which is not really an action item per se, because we're not looking for any specific action tonight. It is simply the report by Christina on outdoor lighting standards and things like that. So a discussion of outdoor lighting standards by Ms. Jansen.
So, coming to you with the information that was requested at your last meeting with regard to outdoor lighting standards in residential areas. As you will remember, this was prompted by a code enforcement complaint that the city received, and then subsequently, I don't know if it was before your last meeting, I did receive another complaint on the same light, which is basically attached to somebody's garage and blasting into people's bedrooms. At your last meeting, you requested that I bring you back some sample language from surrounding jurisdictions, and so I've done that with just kind of my 4 standard jurisdictions closest to us: Spokane, Spokane County, Spokane Valley, and Liberty Lake. So I would be willing to have a discussion or answer any questions. I will tell you, generally speaking, in a case like this, I believe that less is more. I don't think that we need to have pages of lighting regulations. I like Spokane County. And I also always think that pictures are helpful. So something along the lines of what Spokane Valley provides as an illustration might be a good idea as well. But I can answer any questions you might have. This item, at such time that the council does determine that they want to take action, will be included in the larger code amendments that will be coming to you later this spring. We'll just slip this in before the public hearing on those later this spring and have them effective fairly quickly.
So I guess before the council begins asking questions or any discussion, I guess there would be an action item by the council, and that would be a determination now if this is something you would like Christina to go ahead and begin to draft as a amendment to the code and present back to the council for inclusion, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, or if this is something that at this time you would rather see it left alone and we would not pursue it any further. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to the council for questions, if you have any for Ms. Jansen. Ms. McLaughlin.
So this was raised because you'd received 2 complaints. Have those been resolved, or is this an ongoing issue where it would be helpful for you to have this as a code?
At this time, because there's nothing in the code, there's nothing that code enforcement can do. So it is an ongoing issue as I understand it.
Okay, well then I would think that it should be added to the code. That would be my recommendation.
Or at least consideration of, with the other amendments, right?
Right,
Yeah.
not anything, not a,
Mhm.
not a separate action, but as part of the amendments.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Any other Mr. Sander?
I hate to do it just because of one instance of all these years, but on the other hand, it's a nuisance,
Well, and I would say that I've noticed, I think a lot of folks were, and not just because of the pandemic, but because of other property crime issues, it would seem that over the last couple of years in particular, folks have really begun to bolster their outdoor lighting, their nighttime lighting of their properties. And so in the days when you used to have folks that would shut out all their porch lights or things like that, turn stuff off at night, I've noticed, at least in my neck of the woods, and I would sure people with other property, they've really begun to light some things up. And with these LED lights, it doesn't take much to, it doesn't take many dollars to turn your place into a Vista Stadium.
And I recognize that also. I was thinking about that driving over tonight, that when I was growing up, we only turned the porch light on if we're expecting company, and ours is on all the time.
Well, I think it's funny because in the zest of actually being energy conscious and energy conservation, we've got these bulbs down to where you can leave them burn 24 hours a day and they don't cost anything with these LEDs. And I mean, people can put. I did the same thing in the back of my place. I put 2 motion sensor lights back there, and there have been times that. The nocturnal animals, I think, have begun trying to see how many times they can turn it on and off in the middle of the night. So that is something that isn't happenstance. But yeah, I think we've had something that is probably wasn't a problem, but is becoming more of a problem as conditions go along.
So I certainly like maybe perhaps a combination Spokane County as a general thing with the city of Spokane Valley is the Spokane Valley diagram in a little more detail.
So at this time, it sounds like this is an outdoor lighting standard is something that the council would like to see as part of a code amendment. We will go ahead and work that up as part of the code amendment. It would be approved as part of the more general code amendments, but I think what we'll do just is once it is finalized, we'll bring it back to the council one more time for discussion so you can see, make sure that we follow the less is more aspect of things. So we will begin working on that as part of the code. Any other questions for Christina? Consider that item closed then, and we will move on to our staff report. So I will gather our treasurer in and see what she has to report from the audit. So, Mr.
Go ahead.
George.
Yep, go ahead. I can move out of your way.
Let's see. Because I have to dial 9. Sorry, folks. It actually goes into the speakers. Yeah, I know. There we go.
Hello?
Ms. Matkin.
Hello?
Debbie?
Yes.
Okay, it is time for your treasurer's report. Do you want to bring the council up to speed on any items you have, particularly the audit?
Yes. So the field work portion of the 2018-2020 accountability and financial statement audit is almost complete. From here, it will go to review, and then the state will contact the city for an exit conference. So far, we haven't had any issues. We've been 100% compliant, so that's good. Audits are done remotely now and for the foreseeable future, which has been a little bit challenging due to not all of our records being electronic, but overall it worked pretty well. And then I just wanted to remind council that due to the city having more than $2 million in annual expenditures, we are required to have that financial statement audit going forward. So we'll have to remember to budget for both accountability and financial statement audits in the future. As a result of the audit, I think that we will have a couple of exit items that will require updating some of our financial policies, but that's really all that's anticipated at this time. And I think that's all I have for you. Any questions?
Any questions for Debbie? Council doesn't seem to have any questions for you. Anything else? How did year end wrap up?
It's going really well. I hope to have a pretty comprehensive report for you at the next council meeting. So we ended really well, better than I had hoped for. So that's good.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Debbie. We'll talk to you later on. We're gonna turn you off now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's it?
Okay.
Well, technology's a blessing. So we'll go to clerk, planning, and code enforcement with Ms. Jansen.
Thank you. So from the city clerk's office, you will recall last fall that we started a project of scanning all of the starting to scan all of the city's files, and we found out midway through the project that there was a problem with the license that we were using, and so that project has to be restarted from the beginning. That will be at the cost of the consultant. The city will not be held responsible for those costs a second time. We will be meeting with staff, the mayor and I, to finalize how we want those electronic files indexed in all of the departments, and then we will proceed with having all those documents rescanned. From the planning department, I wanted to remind you once again of the planning commission vacancy. I have had 2 folks who seem to be fairly interested, which is good news, but if you know of anyone else who might be interested, we're going to be doing some fun stuff. A letter of interest and a resume to me, preferably by the end of this week, so that the mayor can take a look at the candidates and make a choice. The Planning Commission will be conducting a public hearing on the 23rd of this month for the comp plan amendments. And then following that public hearing, those will be coming forward to you all. And then when that project is done, they will do their final go through on the zoning code updates, conduct a public hearing on that. And then that large update will be coming your way as well. Code enforcement, I haven't had any new complaints other than the lighting complaint, and continuing to work with some of our frequent flyers, which is okay. Other than that, I don't have anything unless you have questions.
Questions for Christina? Thank you, Christina.
I have one
Oh.
question. So I apologize. So it's just the Historic Society that we have a problem backfilling. It's not the actual Planning Commission.
You know, in the past, I have had a little bit of difficulty, but the last couple of vacancies, I've gotten a decent amount of interest in the planning commission, and I always say, I also have an opening on historic preservation. That's a little bit more specialized, and so yeah, I'm getting plenty of interest in planning commission, but just not in historic preservation.
Well, I thank you for considering my suggestion earlier, but of course, the planning commission's the one that is the big, we would really want to preserve citizenry,
Oh, yes. For sure.
representation on there, so.
Yeah, no plans to change their
Okay,
requirements.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and as a quasi-judicial entity, I don't think we have that ability to take anybody from outside the area, right?
I haven't looked at the statute. I don't think it may not necessarily be a statutory requirement, but I don't know of any jurisdiction that has accepted, even under dire circumstances of need, that has placed a non-resident citizen on their planning commission, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Christina? Excellent, thank you, Christina. So, Mr. Allen, Public Works.
All right. So you probably all received your letter about the new water and sewer rates, and hopefully that was clarified a few things. I know we're probably end up getting some calls. We got a few calls after the letter went out, very few. But my anticipation is that after the first bill goes out, then they would have questions. We'll probably get some phone calls about that. But I just want to check the council too, to see if that was, if you understood from the letter that we sent out what was going on. You guys had a little bit more insight as to the whole process. That on the back of the bill that's going out, it has that new rate structure on there, so they'll be able to refer to that. Just in case you guys get any questions out in the field, you can look at that and just refresh your memory, or you can just send them to the city hall and we'll try to explain the best we can as to what this rate structure looks like now. That first billing, so it'll be billed for January and February, so that'll be going out on the 10th or 11th?
Bill day's 11th.
11th, okay. So we're also gearing up for some projects this year. So I met with our engineers, discussed a few of the water projects that we want to do. We've got some older 4-inch mains that we want to replace to improve our fire flow and our water quality. So there's a couple of random areas that we're going to try to combine together to get those done in one project. And then we've got our new park generator that arrived just about a week or two ago. And then we're also going to be working with engineers on that to improve our pump motor, so we'll be able to reduce the usage that we use for the startup capabilities on that. Those should be going to design here in the next week or two. Actually, they're going to come to us with a task order that I met with them to explain to them what the projects were. So probably by the next council meeting, we'll see a task order from Welch Conver for these projects. Street, so the Argonne project, just a little update on that. Can't remember if I told you guys or not, but the last meeting that we were awarded another $1 million towards the Argonne project, which is great because prices just keep going up, and we want to be able to make this project go. So now we're up to about a $3.2 million project on this Argonne corridor. We did meet with our engineers today and went over the Argonne project from the whole plans from start to finish to try to get everybody up to speed. It's been a long ordeal from the time that we started design several years ago, and just wanted everybody to be up to speed on that. And if there's any questions, we'll try to resolve those before we get to final design. So I think it was a good little workshop that we did, had good staff input, and the engineers took notes and making some corrections and looking into a few adjustments that we need to make for for that project. The maintenance crew's been busy doing, well, potholes lately with all the freeze thaw weather that we've had. Hopefully we're through that. It's nice to be back into the 40s again. Most of the snow down here is melted. Where I live, I still have a bunch of snow and ice, so it's a pleasure to come down here and deal with that. We did have some issues with some hydraulics on one of our trucks. We've been dealing with that, had it in and out of the shop in between storms to try to get it rectified. Got some of it figured out. We're gonna wait till after the season's over and then take it back in to get the rest of it adjusted. Our tree board has been meeting, and so we're in the process of writing the grant for the funds from the DNR, which is Department of Natural Resources, for our tree inventory and management plan. So that application is due by March 4th. I've got Daniel working on doing the application. It's been a great exercise for him to go through that, to write it, and then we've met last night with the tree board to kind of critique it and make some adjustments, and so we'll make some final adjustments on that, send it back out again, have it reviewed, and then it should be ready for submittal. And we'll find out in probably about March whether we are accepted or not. Once we've been accepted for the grant, then we can go out for the RFQ for a consultant that won't be able to start anything until July. It's a little delayed this year. I think it's because there was so much money. They wanted to make sure that they had rolled this program out to where as many people as they could would be eligible to receive some funding. So typically, we would have been able to start this project right around March. So we kind of jumped the gun on a few things, anticipating that, because we didn't know when the deadline was going to be on this or when we were going to be able to start. So we were prepared. And Daniel will be doing some training, because we did purchase the software for the TreeWorks program that we're going to use to do the inventory with. So he'll be training next week. We've got the for the consultants, or not the consultant, but the I can't think what they're called. Anyway, people that make the software. He works for them. He's going to come out and done the installation, and then he'll do the training, go out in the field, do some field exercises with it, use our GIS and computer and the software, kind of get up to speed on that. So when we do go to do the process in July, that he's fully trained on that, ready to go. Okay, that's what I've got for a report.
Questions for Paul?
Can I ask a bizarrely technical question? So this TreeWorks GIS, is it just to identify the location of the tree, or is it actually the early identification if a tree's dying?
So this TreeWorks is a database program.
Mm-hmm.
So we use GIS points to locate where the trees are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're able to take that data, put it into the database so we can track the health of it. So when we go out and we do the inventory, they'll also be doing an assessment of all the trees.
Okay.
And so they'll be able to check all the boxes on that, take diameters, all the things for the species, height, girth, element of the tree. And if there's any damage or anything like that, then that's where the consultant will be doing the assessment.
Very cool.
Yeah. So then also the plan is, once we have all that data on there, we'll be able to do an interactive map on our website. So you'll be able to go and you'll see which ones are city trees, and if you've got a tree on close to your property, whether it's a city tree or it's your tree. And then there will be a little history on it.
When's that happen?
After we gather all this information.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, so probably within the next year and a half.
I'm a big GIS enthusiast, so I was always curious
We're
about that.
just starting our GIS, and Daniel's kind of taking the lead on that. He's doing a great job. He's got some base maps, so it'll be pretty easy to incorporate all that on there.
Very cool.
So yeah, he's been out taking points on our sewer and our water infrastructure as well.
Mr. Sander?
I noticed in the paper that Welch Comer's had a number of promotions, including the folks that we used to deal with. Are we dealing with the new people on the water project and the street project? Well, the street project's been something that's been going on, but the new water projects, will that be new people or?
So we're still in communication with Nisha, who's takes care of the water and sewer, and then with Matt Gillis, who's doing the streets. And but we've been dealing with their associates because they've kind of stepped up in the company. But and they've hired a few other people. They've actually got a Spokane office now. So they have an office in Portland and Spokane. So
Not in Millwood.
not too far from Millwood. Yeah.
It's right over by Water
Water
District
District
3.
3, yeah. So
That's
not
almost-
far. It's a lot closer than going to Portland.
Yeah.
So, but now they've got some new engineers and some EITs that are
Well, that's so,
they've hired as well.
Matt, Nisha, stay involved with us a bit.
They are. They, if we have concerns, we still feel free to contact them and ask them any questions. But the people that are coming up behind them, that's what we've been dealing with mostly, and they're very knowledgeable.
Yeah, if I'm contacted by Welch Comer on a project out here on this water sewer, it's typically Nisha's the initial contact. Taylor Tomke is he's an engineer. I'm just not sure what the title is, but I've worked with Taylor both on Millwood projects as well as some water sewer districts or water districts, and you're in pretty good hands on the utility side with them.
Right.
So.
And
I
Ashley
was
as
just
well.
concerned.
Oh, and Ashley as well. Yes.
As folks move up, others come in and they may not have the same
Yeah.
background, like everything's in the same history, of
Yeah.
course, but also sometimes the philosophies get kind of, approaches get kind of
And
tweaked.
I'd suggest
in the wrong way.
it might be good. I don't want to hijack your meeting at a future point, but it might be good to have Nisha and Taylor come out and just to introduce Taylor at some point. I know that they've done that with other clients. You know, the water districts have tended to get back into the swing of in-person meetings because if you're attending a water district meeting, you're usually either angry or have that's your only interest, right? There's not very many public in attendance at those meetings, but it might be good just to have them come out and do an intro to the council as folks have changed. And Paul and I were talking before the meeting. Their GIS surveyor
Mike.
extraordinaire basically is in the Spokane office, and you know, even for folks that don't use Welch, I've referred them over to Mike on survey, GIS, legal description issues. Just they've got a good presence in this community right now, and it's been long coming. I know there are people that have really helped push them to get a presence over in this state, and I would appreciate your push on that to get them here. So.
Any other questions for Paul?
Well,
Mr. Sander?
kind of related item, it's more of a Debbie, I was just bringing up for, I was gonna wait till later, but I did check in with Debbie maybe last week, about a paper trail for all the work that went into our rate structure revision. You know, and, all the details of which line item goes is it a fixed cost or is it a variable cost? And she has that paperwork, because I thought, that's something we could, if we remember where those things are, we could kind of keep track of that ourselves. And
Right. So we've actually, I don't know if we have yet or not, but it's actually going to be on the website, the study that they did. We're putting that on the website so we can put that in a newsletter. If anybody has any questions, they can go to, maybe we did.
We did not,
We did not add that to the newsletter?
but we will.
Okay. So,
well, I was interested in just the details, because I know in the past when they've had to do reports, like an annual report, but which annual is it, and how did they do it last time, and which numbers where do they pull those numbers from? And that's what I was looking for. And she says, no, she's got that paper trail, so we internally could, keep track of where those costs are and without having to go back through a major rate study.
Well, she has also updated some of the accounts so we can actually track which dollars are put where and what are assigned to capital costs, what are assigned to treatment costs, what are assigned to base rate, all that sort of stuff. So she has updated that, so we just, behind the scenes, we'll have the ability to financially track that and make sure that that the rates are actually doing what they have been designed and are intended to do, as opposed to simply going, okay, we've done all these rates, now we're just gonna throw it all in the giant piggy bank and shake it up. There is more to it than that behind the scenes. She has done a good job of making sure all that is lined up behind the scenes. Any other questions for Paul? So very brief mayor's report. As Paul said, we were the recipient of another $1 million from SRTC. They see the need and the desire for getting this project done, and they have been wholeheartedly behind working with us to make sure that the city gets out of this what the city wants to get out of it with respect to safety and access and traffic control and all that. So I am grateful to our local regional transportation planning office for their support. We've been working on getting the table set for this year. One of the things that we will be looking at, as Debbie said, is once the auditor brings back their recommendations, we will likely make some adjustments to the employee manual, which is more of an internal thing, just so that we can clearly define ways we track PTO, vacation, sick leave, with the changes that have gone on with Washington's FLMA and all that sort of stuff. The other issue that we need to work on here in the city, and we will be doing that over the next year to year and a half, is we are going to develop an actual policy and procedures manual for the city, where we have elements of not only how our financial policies, but someplace where somebody can go and understand what's our road approach policy, what's our right-of-way policy, what's our policy with this or that. So anything that we have a policy or a procedure that needs to be codified or should be available to the public, we'll work through that. The manual will have different sections, we'll divide it up, but we'll just have one manual, and then that will be something that we can either put to the web or have available. But we've done a lot of things over time with respect to ordinances and resolutions and things like that, and so we understand that we need to gain a really good sense of where we're at with different policies and procedures for things. So that is something we're going to be working on. Lastly, I attended the meeting of the Regional Council of Governments, and one thing that has come to light, and we may talk about this in the future, just for maybe bringing this to the council in the future, is with respect to our ARPA funds, there is now an option that you may take up to $10 million of the funds that you did receive and apply those to revenue recovery. So what that does is that basically allows the city to apply those funds directly to the general fund. We may discuss that, because what we're kind of running into is, for better or for worse, things in the business and tax world appear to be back to normal. We don't get much call for any type of assistance, and the buckets that are available to use for projects tend to be a little limited. We don't have a lot of projects that, other than simply spending money on water and sewer infrastructure, it may be something that the council may want to consider, that once we have looked at what we have for ready-made projects that fit, the remainder of the money we may want to consider, or you folks may want to consider, taking that as revenue recovery, and it does remove the restrictions on the tracking and everything like that. But we can discuss that at a later time. There are some things behind it that we need to be fully aware of before I bring that back. So Brian and Debbie are working on that just to make sure that we have a full sense of, although it sounds really easy to do, is there any pitfalls or traps behind that? So that's just something that we will be looking at, but that may come back in the future. And that's the last thing is just for your information. I'm sure that as the summer goes on, or as we get closer to the start of the Argonne project, you will start to have interest from citizens as to what we're really talking about. We have put the engineer on notice that they will need to be prepared to begin open house and public outreach. However, because of certain requirements, we're not going to begin that process until we've actually gone a ways down the right-of-way acquisition path, just for privacy, things like that, for stuff like that. So we still need to do some more of the right-of-way acquisitions, but we need to get farther along in the acquisition process for the right-of-way. Well, as soon as we hit that point where we are able to move into public outreach mode, we will. The city is aware of it, and we're just timing it in respect to everything else we have going on, but we are ready to roll that out as soon as we can. Any questions for me? Excellent, like that. So that brings us to our legal report from Mr. Worst.
Okay. Let's open it with, I am not aware of any reason for an executive session. Are you, Mayor?
No.
Council? I don't know if anybody has, so that's always a positive. Just to piggyback, I was going to touch upon the ARPA funding that the city's been looking at. The mayor is spot on in his assessment. Debbie and I have started to kind of discuss some of the current guidance that has been issued. If you'll recall, back in, I guess it was May of last year, the interim rule for the use of ARPA funds was issued. That was 151 pages, and I think we all had a pretty good understanding of what the use of the state and local government funds could be. 3 days before the council meeting in January, the interim final rule, which means the rule is final but isn't effective because of the publication and notice requirements until April 1st, was published. The rule now is 437 pages. So I think if you were trying to read between the lines of what the mayor was saying, it looks like we have some flexibility, but there's another 150 pages specific to that use of funds that we need to kind of understand what it means. So, but initially it looks like we've got some opportunity to use monies from different available uses, and the more generalized use for revenue displacement or replacement of lost revenues seems to be an option for the city as well. So really the only other item other than some day-to-day inquiries and follow-up with staff, the only other item to report is the city is now the proud owner of a strip of property over off of Trent. We were able to close on that property. Again, appreciate the council's patience, council's guidance. We didn't have to initiate litigation, but we did have the potential to use it, and that did actually seem to kind of push things along a little bit. Once we triggered that, we were in notice with the property owner, and then within 2 weeks, the title company had called and asked the mayor to sign documents remotely and send them in. So next step is just a boundary line adjustment to reflect now that the property line was here that he owned. Now we got to move it back a little bit. I don't think I've ever done a boundary line adjustment with the city. So we'll be in touch in terms of finalizing that on the administrative side. So other than that, I just want to say everybody looks healthy and good. It's really good to see folks in person. Like I said, I've had some smaller special purpose district meetings where the public never attends. It is nice to get the band back together. It's good to see people. It's good to converse. It's good to talk. And I had some apprehension because it's change. Today, something different all of a sudden. So this is good. Appreciate it. So thank you. Questions?
Yeah, can I ask, how much ARPA funding did we get? Because you mentioned $10 million, and I could ask this during yours, but we only had like a few $100,000, correct?
We have $525,000 in total that will be allotted to us over 2 years. So we get
Okay.
250 in 2021 and 250 in 2022, and I say that in change. Basically, what they've done is the federal government has said up to $10 million of your allotted funding may be just swept into, the way I understand it, is swept into your general fund as revenue recovery. So for a lot of smaller jurisdictions, it makes a lot of sense if you don't have things. Places like City of Spokane, Spokane County, City of the Valley, I don't think City of the Valley is quite up to 10 million, would have up to 10 million, but for Spokane and Spokane County, they can put 10 million directly into their general fund. Now, some of them have done the full-on calculation, which is this enormous calculation for potential revenue, and in some places, you can still opt to take more revenue recovery if that formula works for you. I think Spokane might be doing that, but for most all other jurisdictions, if you can't spend it on the buckets, which is a 2-page document of all these codes, it makes more sense for you to be able to scoop that money and do good for your city in that way. But yeah, that's up to 10 million. No, we don't have no 10 million.
Thanks for the clarification, because I'm like, I thought that was like a few $100,000.
You guys go to
Yeah.
Any other questions for Brian? Thank you, Mr. Worst. So that brings us to our council remarks, since we're all here. Ms. Vesey.
Well, I would like to echo Brian in that it's so nice to be back after 2 years, you were saying, to the month. And I want to extend a special thanks to Paul and your team, because you guys were always out there in the field and out in our neighborhoods and such. So that was you didn't get the 2 years off that the rest of us did. So please thank the Public Works people.
Mr. Sander.
I'm been on the STA board and the Planning and Development Committee, and they're talking about other not express routes, but other direct lines out to the valley and all the way to the state line, and maybe even more. But they had mentioned, then they've got some scenarios. They're going to roll their, sleeves up to how to get to either Marabou or to the Valley Transit Center, and perhaps a park and ride in Millwood. I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know where you put a park and ride unless you put it next to the Mexican restaurant there. I don't know. But, that just came up, and I thought, oh, that's good. Then I got to thinking, I don't know, maybe over on...
I think one of the places they were looking at a park and ride was over on the north side of Argonne. South side of Argonne, in those areas. I'm not sure have they been aware of the idea that SDCU is now using the old apartment hotel / business park over there, or if they were looking at that dentist's office or something like that. But that was supposed to be there that was one of the places they looked at for a park and ride, because they were going to have a high performance transit stop where the buses would just basically pull off the freeway. You'd hop on the freeway, and there would be a dedicated bus on and off ramp at the Argonne exit. But they're trying to marry that with reconstruction of that whole Argonne overpass, because that whole Argonne overpass is on WashDOT's radar for reconstruction and everything like that. So there's a lot going on over there. I'm sure that you might have seen the last thing that they had discussed was modifying the Millwood bus route as such that it would continue across the bridge. We would have bus service along Trent. We would have bus service down Argonne. we would lose our Liberty route, but one thing we would gain would be a bus route that would go over the bridge, turn at upriver, go down upriver basically to Green Street, and then tie into the SCC Park and Ride for the Central City line and everything right there. So that's something I think may still be on the board. I'm not really sure since I haven't been
Yeah,
there.
they haven't mentioned, that's part of this next, I'm just confused by all the plans. Of course, I have my orientation meeting coming the end of the month, so maybe I'll figure out what all these, they've got a plan for the plan for the plan.
Carl loves to make plans, and we have to have all sorts of plans, so.
Yeah, so anyway, I'll learn more about that, I'll keep us informed.
But they are definitely trying to consider ways to ensure that Millwood is not only maintains transit service, but also is integrated into the larger, more high-performance picture that they're going to have available. So, direct connections to SCC, so you can get downtown on the Central City line quicker, things like that. And then ways when they actually do the Liberty Lake high-performance line, that we have options for our citizens to be able to make those connections to however they deem that high-performance line is going to be integrated in at Argonne.
My only bus riding here in the last decades have been from here to downtown and back. But the other day I was wondering about my granddaughter. So they live over on by Terrace Park. And so I was looking at the routes, and she could catch the bus at 24th and Evergreen, get to Marabou, transfer, and end up at North 40. With just one transfer, and it's a very short period of time. I think that's almost quicker than I can get there. And then she goes to city school. I thought, okay, how about city school? Well, she just needs to walk up to Broadway and come right on down. And if you ask real nice, the bus driver will stop at Vista Liberty, so I don't have to go to the high school and not back. So. That's pretty neat.
That is great.
Thank you. Mr. Culler.
Just a little bit of news out of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. We have a tire pickup. Paul, what was the week in May 21st, I think, Saturday?
We talked about that a long time ago.
Yeah, last year. We'll put
yeah.
some publication out about that, but there'll be a tire pickup at the park in May. So people can bring their spare tires if they don't want to drag to the transfer station.
Sean, can you send me some information on that again?
Yeah, I'll take
It's been quite a while ago, so.
I know Lindsay has us down at the county to have the trailer come out. So
Yeah, I'm not sure as much as we have to do. I think they kind of handle it all, but I just want to make sure we get it on our radar so that we
don't
what's
allocate
going
the
on
park
at
to somebody else.
Yeah.
Or at least the parking lot.
You think it's in May?
I think it's May 21st.
Okay.
So, and it's good to be back in person.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin.
Yeah, that's all I got to say is it is nice to be back in person, and it's a lot easier to stay focused and not get drowsy. So I appreciate that. It's nice to see you all.
Thank you very much. So yes, it is good to see everyone. Thank you all for your considered participation tonight. And I have no announcements at this time. I don't think we have anything coming up this month. So hopefully we can get through February and get to some more spring-like weather on the other side. Does anybody from the council have any date announcements, anything like that? All right, so we will set our next regular meeting for March the 8th at 7 p.m. here in person. Should things change, we will keep people in flux, or informed, but rather than in flux. But this seemed to work well. We will have a few more things we will have to work out with respect to some remote participation requirements, particularly as we move forward with public hearings. We'll keep working on that. But I would say to this, remember, if we get 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel, we get to pick our own name for our channel as opposed to UCJHTHYOAQ, blah, blah, blah. We get to pick our own names. So get people to, what is it? Like, share, subscribe?
What are we at? Oh, wow. So a little bit of an uphill battle.
Yes, we have climbed. We've got it.
I leaned over at one point and said, how many do we have? And Christina pointed to the number, which we think it says, yeah, concurrent viewers 2.
Yeah!
That's all right. That's 2 more than